if you want that.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to the August 8th, 2023 Bloomfield Hills City Commission meeting. Let's all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The first item is the consent agenda, including the minutes of the meeting held on July 11th, 2023. Do we have any questions from the commissioners on the consent agenda? Any comments? Anyone else have any comments? Okay, we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion's carried. The next item is recognition of citizens in the audience. If there is someone in the audience that has a question or a comment regarding either an agenda item or a non-agenda item, now would be the time. Please raise your hand to be recognized, stand and state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone? No? Okay, thank you. First matter on the agenda is the recommendation for auditing services from our finance director and treasurer, Sandra Barlas.
Thank you, Mayor. So mid to late May, we received notice from Bent Moran that they were increasing our audit fees quite substantially, actually, about 66% over the next 3 years. So we thought in the best interest of the city that we would go out for some bids and quotes from other firms. So I reached out to other communities and spoke with finance directors and treasurers from other areas, and they gave me some recommendations. And of those recommendations, I requested quotes from 4 different firms. We received them all back, and the 3 areas that we really looked at, of course, was cost, and then time, if they can fit us into their schedules. So obviously, we need to file timely. And then lastly is references. So I did check 2 references for each of the 4 firms. And the one that stood out the most and the one that I'm recommending is PSLZ. And actually, the partner, Raina Emmons, is here. Just to put a face with your name and to introduce yourself. If you wanted to take the time.
Well, good evening. I'm Raina Emmons. I'm an audit partner, managing director of PSLZ. It's my pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present our bid. Our firm is specialized in governmental auditing. It's not something we dabble in. It's all that I'm assigned to, just governmental audits. I don't do any tax. My firm is full service, of course. But I do have extensive governmental auditing experience. I'm also appointed by the state treasury to be a consultant to them as far as local units, governmental matters. We do cities, villages, townships of all shapes and sizes, varying populations. And I do most of my work, quite honestly, in Oakland County and some in Washtenaw County. I have other clients as well, but I have over 40 clients. So I have broad experience, and if I can answer any questions, I just wanted to say hello this evening, and hopefully I will have the opportunity to work with all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Raina?
I just, so are you yourself doing the work, or you have a team that does our review?
I myself will be coming out. I probably will bring a staff person with me, but that's about it. I'm not bringing.
I wondered how you handle 40 clients.
I'm busy.
Okay.
It's but we are full service as far as, so dealing with the municipalities. Many of them need, they use me as a resource also. So I'm always available to City Commission, to to all your staff and professionals as a resource for anything. There's so many new things, grants, governmental accounting standards, board pronouncements, you know, whatever anyone has a question with, we'd like to be responsive.
And then just to follow up, you had indicated the timing would be a little quicker, or when the audit would be complete?
When you say quicker?
Well, I don't know, there was something about how does the timing, are we looking in the same time frame as what we've done in the past?
I believe so. This year could be, we would have to discuss the timing a little more. Raina did supply a timeline, but it kind of got pushed back because we needed to wait until this meeting to have it approved. So it may get pushed back a little more, but I would imagine going forward, it would be similar to,
Yeah, usually it was
November.
presented to the commissioner in October or November meetings.
Right.
Okay.
So if it happens to be December this year, it may just be because of.
Well, respectfully, we'll talk about
Yeah.
what meeting you'd like me at, and we'll work backwards from there and try and meet that goal. As far as, because we're now in August, but
Right.
I'll see what Sandra's
Okay.
schedule's like, and happy to work. I live very close by,
Okay.
and so it's easy for me to drop in. There are many things that we can't do over the phone or via email. Sometimes it's just easier to, point to it and discuss it quickly and move on. But, you're due December 31st to the state. But again, if you'd like me here well before that to address council and present it to you before it's filed, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to meet your guidelines.
I mean, and I think historically it had been October or November, so I would think shooting for November, unless there's some hiccups or something, would seem reasonable to me if Sandra and, yeah,
If she's ready, I'm ready.
okay,
So you shouldn't be an issue. And we've also, we've worked together before at another community. So, we have a familiarity as far as working together and that type of thing. And, Sandra's very easy to work with. And I really appreciate that. That's why, I'm looking forward to, should we be approved, I'm actually excited, so.
okay.
And I would say the same about working with Raina. The communication is key with getting the audit completed timely. And so it was great working with Raina. And when somebody recommended her, I jumped on it, and I called their two of the references, and they couldn't say any negative things. They were very positive. So I feel the recommendation.
We ready for a motion?
No, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, where is your firm located?
Our office is technically in Livonia at 7 Mile and 275. That's our office.
And how long have you been in business?
The firm has been in business over 60 years. I've been with the firm for 30 years, and prior to that, I was with Coopers and Lyman.
Mm-hmm. And your firm specializes in municipalities?
Yes.
In government across the state?
We pretty much stick to southeastern Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
We don't go, I don't know, we don't have geographic boundaries other than Michigan, but, I had a family and things like that. I didn't like to travel, so I stuck pretty much to, like I said, Oakland County, Washington County.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, forgive me, we need
No, please.
to vet everything. So previously, Plant Moran, I mean, they probably had 4 people come in. I know they met with us, and you're proposing 2 people to do it and get it done in a timely manner?
Yes. And if you see, do they have the proposed, I have my list of clients, and many are larger than the city, and we're able to staff them and, get everything done. And so much more can be done electronically now. I physically like to come out. I'm not a big proponent of remote audits, except for when we had to do it that way. So I am a hands-on. I do like to be physically present. And and have that communication. So I think it's actually more efficient, but there are a lot of things that they can send me ahead of time, and get things, our planning, that type of thing done in advance.
And Sandra, are we gonna follow the same process we did before, where the auditors come out, they meet with you, they meet with the mayor, you
I
know?
would assume that Rena would follow that.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, that's-
This, you know, to Dave, the same process we've always had.
We'll make sure of it.
I just think it's a nice thing that the, you know, you guys, she meets with you, she meets with the mayor. You know, that's kind of been the process we've had in the
Good
past.
process.
Okay, I mean, obviously, you've come in the lowest bid, so that's always good to save the money, the city money.
Well, I also don't like to raise, you know, I know when you look at the quotes, it's, there appears to be a substantial difference. It's not a, I don't want you to feel like you're getting anything less. Again, we're very specialized, we have a reputation in the state of Michigan. I mean, Treasury calls me when they have questions. So, again, it's not something, you can't dabble in governmental anymore. You know, back before, you know, firms used to do taxes most of the year and keep their staff busy with governmental audits in the summertime. We can't do that anymore. I attend the national AICPA training for governmental auditing every year, and, you know, as well as other, you know, I sit in committees and boards and that type of thing to keep up on all the changes and that type of thing. So, again,
Yeah.
we're very specialized in this.
Some of the other firms are doing consulting work now. I mean, they're not really probably interested in doing government auditing anymore. They have gone out into other things. So they're, as I think you mentioned, some of them are almost starting to price themselves out of wanting to do governmental work.
Yeah,
So-
so there's
That's a
obvious.
Plant Miranda, it looks
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your time for coming today to answer questions.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, and anytime.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions for Rena? No?
I'll make a motion to approve PSLZ LLC for our auditor. Is this a contract for 3 years, Sandra? Per the contract that I assume Dirk will be reviewing if he has not already.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, next item on the agenda is the revised proposed agreement for fiscal recovery distribution with Oakland County for the critical infrastructure grant. And it's a matter that we approved in June, and now Oakland County has provided us with some changes to the agreement. And
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So probably the best way to do this is have Dirk explain the changes. We got the agreement from Oakland County, immediately gave it to Dirk to see what the significance of these changes are, and maybe you could just explain that.
Absolutely. First of all, this is a grant, it's an ARPA grant, it's a federal grant that is being funneled to the city through Oakland County. We approved the agreement back in June. It's for $100,000. At that time, we were considered a subrecipient, which is a legal term of art in the grant business, if you will, that requires pretty extensive reporting requirements under federal law by the city as a subrecipient. A number of subrecipients have approached the county and said, look, can you recategorize us as grantees with you being the subrecipient? Because if you're categorized as a grantee, your reporting requirements are not nearly stringent. So that's what this is. It's virtually exactly the same agreement with a couple of minor changes, and those minor changes are categorizing us now as a grantee instead of a subrecipient, which results in the city having less stringent reporting requirements, with the county being the subrecipient and the county being responsible for the more stringent reporting requirements. So this amendment's a good thing for the city. creates less of a burden on Sandra and the city.
Sounds like a good thing. Does anyone have any questions? or
This was for
comments?
the water, to help with the water, remind me again?
Water line verifications and sanitary sewer investigations.
That's what I thought, that's, we're required to do by the state.
I believe that's the case.
That was our conversation that we had in June, right?
Correct.
We didn't really have a choice.
Correct.
So you're required to do it, here's $100,000, you match it, right? Will it cover it? I forgot
It
now,
will.
sorry.
It will, and right now, we're still working with the county to decrease the number of lines that we actually have to verify. So we still haven't confirmed how many actually have to be dug up. We're going through old records and such to try to dwindle that number as low as we possibly can. So that amount will cover what we will be needing.
And are your fees to do all this work part of that grant coverage, or are we paying separate for that?
It can be included in that, yes.
We don't have to pay, we don't have to accept all this grant money. So I think the point is, we're gonna try to be careful of what they're doing.
I mean, if HRC is spending 5-10 grand to
Right.
do all this negotiation or all this stuff, I would want that to come out of the grant, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
agree.
Yes, but there's still a matching component of it, but we don't have to, take all that money out, please.
Okay.
So we can, they're up to, so it's up to 100,000. If we, after you're done and you find out instead of 100 homes, we have to do 50 homes. So we only need to spend $100,000 total. We get 50 for the grant and we have to pay 50,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes,
Correct.
And then whatever your fee is outside, so it's up to 100,000
yes.
Correct.
They will match.
you'll match.
Correct. And we can also talk about doing additional work if you desire, such as sewer televising or other type of work for that additional 100, or we don't have to spend it at all.
And so I knew the commission was, there was some discussion last time, may recall, that there's some concern that we're just going to spend $100,000 and then spend another $100,000. And so we heard you, and we're going to make sure that what we do is appropriate, and if we're gonna do any televising, we'll bring that to the commission for your approval.
I know we've had this discussion, didn't we just televise everything?
Yeah.
No, about 80%
Okay.
of the city,
So they're making us redo ones
well,
that
you're
we've already?
supposed, you're supposed to televise, you're supposed to look at things like every 5 years, I believe. And so, but that SAW grant, I think, televised about 80% to let us know what was going on, and then, so we do know there are some things that need to be fixed. That was another discussion, another meeting, but,
Right.
yeah, that'll be brought to you guys.
Okay.
I remember this is coming back to me now. We were afraid of what we might find.
Yes.
Not
Remember?
this one.
I thought this was the one that if we
Is
go,
this the
and-
exploratory one?
No.
it's not? Like
That
what
was
happens
the
if,
one that Jamie applied for? Is that the one you mean?
well, that one and this one too.
No,
I mean,
they're
what-
two different,
Yeah.
two different ones.
Right.
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, so HRC will come back to us working with the staff to see
what we
what
spend.
we're gonna do and
Yeah.
what we need to do and, okay.
Are there requirements that we have to meet as far as how many homes are checked? And then
That has
what is-
not been determined yet. So there's still negotiation with the state through the county. The Water Resources manages our water, so there's still negotiations through the state on what they're gonna require for lead and copper verifications. And so that's still a kind of a moving,
Even though we've already checked all these.
well.
We checked to the street.
Yes, yes. So we know, I mean, basically what we know is we know that the water system was developed in the 70s and that the main water system, and there wasn't lead use. And every time that we've replaced water mains, we have not found any lead leads. The only thing we haven't done is check between the shut-off at the water main, in the right-of-way to the house. We haven't checked all that. We've checked it right at the connection.
You're right, the road.
And then we also have plumbing permits, and so we have to verify things in people's homes, and we have to do plumbing inspections, and that's part of the data too. And we're not showing that we have these things, and that's why we're still trying to negotiate how many of these homes we'd have to go to, because we don't feel that we have an issue in the city, based upon those things I mentioned.
Do the inspections start with just water testing? Or do they require an actual dig to,
I think it would probably require some sort of digging to verify the line.
So
That could be
intrusive.
so expensive.
Yeah, it's line verification, it's not water testing.
I mean, because you could tell if there was lead or copper just by putting a test tube under a couple faucets in a house, right? Why do we have to? It's like governmental money always has all these complications.
So we're trying to do, we're trying to work through this in the best interest of the city. At some point, we're going to come to you and tell where we're at and see what you think.
Yeah, it's like they do that backflow,
Yeah,
Right.
you know,
yeah, they do.
water that they want to come in your house and they go in your basement and
Right.
then the guy goes, oh, you didn't know?
That's right, that's true.
Oh, I didn't really need to do this.
So, I'm sorry, did you say when this work was gonna be done?
So it would take place probably next summer, but we'll come to you obviously before then, once WRC lets us know how many they can kind of justify us not having to do.
And this is a state requirement,
Correct.
but
So
we
it's
don't know all
nothing
the
we vote on.
specifics yet.
We don't have any control over,
As of now, we're told 10% of your properties need to be verified, but WRC is trying to put forth an effort to say we don't really need to do that many, especially in the state of Bloomfield Hills, given what Dave mentioned, that we haven't found any yet. The system was built in the 70s. All the information we do know from more recent projects that we've done. So, so we're trying to get, I guess, a waiver.
Dirk, have we already signed the first agreement?
I believe
We've already signed and delivered it, so,
I think that's the case. I usually don't get involved with the.
Yes,
sign
we
part,
did.
but I
so
think
we've already made the commitment to this, and this is just with respect to the revisions that Dirk just explained are helpful to
That's
us.
correct.
So,
We are where we are.
We are.
we have
so
no control.
does anyone have any more questions, or are we ready for a motion, or?
Sure. I'll make a motion that the commission considers the revised proposed agreement for the fiscal recovery distribution with the Oakland County for the critical infrastructure grant that is presented in front of us.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, the next item is we will hear an update from our Assistant City Manager and City Clerk, Amy Burton, regarding election administration to consider adoption of the early voting plan document and a budget request and amendment to fund the early voting requirements.
Thank you, Mayor. Commission may remember, beginning of this year, I reported that there was going to be legislation from the state to enact proposal 2022-02, which was approved by the state electorate in November of 2022. There is current legislation that's been adopted. It hasn't all been enacted, but at this point, I felt it was appropriate to bring an update to the City Commission on how it affects the city and our voters. In my memo that was in the packet, I gave a little bit of a background on early voting. That's the most important component right now for the November election. There are other things that will be coming. Try to include that in the budget amendment that we proposed, but basically what it means for the city of Bloomfield Hills for early voting is registered voters will be able to come into City Hall if you approve the plan as I presented. Will be able to come into City Hall 9 days before election and cast their ballot just as they would on election day. So essentially we're running a precinct for 9 days leading up to election day for every election, local and state and federal elections. You may realize in the resolution that we don't have to do it for local elections. It's my recommendation that we do. The rest of Oakland County is doing early voting for local and state and federal elections. And I think it's important that I put this process in place for this local election so when I have to do it next year, I have experience and I can work out any bugs that may come up. There's a budget amendment that's attached here in my memo, and that's really related to the election equipment that is required for us to purchase because the election equipment for early voting has to be separate from the election equipment that we use on election day.
So you'll see there's a hard Verity scan, a touch writer for accessibility, ballot transportation, some other hardware, as well as election inspector pay. So that amount of $15,940 is my request for a budget amendment. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Where are you gonna hold this at, in
In this commission room.
this commission room?
Mhm.
And election inspectors, are those the ones that you pay? You know,
Yes.
the-
Yes, that's the $5,000.
So I mean, there's a big difference between what they do right now for a day versus,
Correct.
right? So do you foresee any issues trying to find somebody?
At this point, I am interested in the tone that I've taken with the election inspectors. The tone of our conversations has been, people are really interested in working a shorter shift. So I'm considering a 4-hour shift, 2 4-hour shifts every day, and I have some interest from volunteers to do that. So work a couple days, 4-hour shifts leading up to election day. It's really important to me that our election workers that have consistently worked in the city of Bloomfield Hills are the ones that we continue to use for this process.
Mhm.
So the city did have an option to enter into an agreement with Oakland County to provide early voting services. It's not something that I felt was appropriate to bring to the city commission, given that the tone of my conversations with our election workers, there seemed to be some interest, and I think that we can make it happen here in the city of Bloomfield Hills. Early voting is not the only option for people. You still have the option to vote absentee, and you still have the option to come on election day. It's just an additional option. And like I mentioned, the difference is that those voters actually put the ballot in the machine before election versus absentee ballot. Someone else does that for you on election day.
And what's so different, I'm sorry, just curious, what's so different with why a different machine?
Security. So we have to test all of the equipment before it goes out to a precinct for election day. We would have to follow the same process for the equipment that's being used for early voting. But if you think on election day, I only have to shut down one day and secure that equipment, then it goes to the Board of Canvassers. Now I have to shut down and secure that equipment every day for 9 days leading up to the election. So that has to be tested and secure in this location. It cannot be then transported the night before to go to a precinct.
Oh, yeah, a long one.
Sorry, I'm not following, so each night you send it, or you keep it secure in a safe here, or
Here.
the results? And then on election day, you turn it all in, or?
Yeah, we would not have, there wouldn't be results for 9 days up till election day. So those are all secure because that would.
Right, that would
be-
skew the whole,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's not results every day. It is just the equipment, the security of the equipment, the security of the ballots. Those will all be in City Hall. But our ballots, our voters will not be going outside of City Hall.
Currently, our elections cost us, what, $5,000 or $6,000 when we do it for one day, correct? So this is in addition to that cost.
Correct. Correct.
So this is really an unfunded mandate. How are some municipalities, I have 2 questions. I mean, again, we are where we are and they've made us do this, but, in May, in 2024, there's possibility there's gonna be a little millage vote for something. So you're gonna have to pay people to sit there for 200 people to vote, maybe.
So, yeah,
It's-
it's a very, very valid
Wow.
question. So tying, Mayor Buckley had called me earlier and we kind of talked through some questions, and I think hers was leading along the same line. So opting in to do local elections is not a requirement from this point forward. This is saying for November 2023, the city of Bloomfield Hills is gonna run early voting for their local election, and then also for the required state and federal elections in 2024. If there was a small millage that was the only thing on a ballot in May of 2024,
Right.
I could opt out of that and not provide early voting to our residents if it didn't seem to make sense for the community. So we are not obligated to do this for every election. This is simply a way to say the rest of Oakland County is doing it for November, and it gives us a chance to learn the process.
To
before
practice.
presidential.
And then let's say a community that has to buy 50 of these machines,
So that's why.
Again, it's an unfunded mandate. Some municipalities don't have, it's just interesting to me that, you know,
It just-
all this money that got shoveled out the door, they should have shoveled it to pay for these machines.
Yeah, it just touched on the comment about early voting through Oakland County. So Oakland County clerk has dedicated, she's committed to having early voting centers. So of the all of the municipalities in Oakland County, there are 4 of us who have said, 4 communities who have said, we're not interested in participating in the early voting with Oakland County. We want to do it ourselves, as we do.
And so they will determine where they're gonna have these polling things? Boy, that's
So
very
they're
political to me.
districts and
Yeah.
zones. The information that I received when I was considering our options was that our voters would likely vote in Bloomfield Township, but that wasn't a guarantee. There are districts where they set up, if the city of Bloomfield Hills were participating in early voting, we would have to contribute workers. I would have to dedicate workers to go. I would not have to contribute equipment. So Oakland County is funding the equipment. That's the part that's.
But they're determining where they're gonna put these precincts.
Yes.
That's just, wow.
So they
pretty-
could,
But we need the
Interesting
equipment
to me.
anyway for future elections, correct?
If
Or
we
you
were
need-
not,
Or
to
do we-
do early voting ourselves, I have to have the equipment. If we were to go with Oakland County, I would not have to purchase this equipment.
But if we purchase this now, we can use it for future
It-
elections.
It is, until the equipment is no longer usable in the state of Michigan, the equipment will be valid.
No, I mean, I agree. We would want to do our elections here where our residents are used to doing it, et cetera. It just is it's not really our
Can we
Our
shorten the number of days?
decision, but it's just like the fact that they can decide where to put these precincts could get very political in the end, I would think.
Yeah, that,
Interesting.
Voting is
It
just
is crazy.
one component of proposal 2022-2. There are 7 other pieces of legislation that are as a result of that.
But it hasn't passed yet?
It has, it just hasn't been enacted. So you may have seen on the news why there's some discussion about what date the presidential primary is going to be next year. And it's all related to this legislation and when it's enacted. So there's cost, you notice we have the drop box out front for absentee ballots. That's part of the legislation. Every community gets a new drop box. There's prepaid postage on your applications for absentee ballot or your postage for your return ballot. There's a lot of change. The state of Michigan is calling this the most sweeping election change in the history of the state.
are we paying the postage
Expensive.
too?
yes.
No, the state is.
Oh, the state
will pay the
is?
postage, so that one we don't have to. But I'm sorry, can you just clarify to Commissioner's McClure point? So if we decide not to do it here, if we were to have decide hypothetically, then the state or the county could appoint a district of where people could go. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
They're going to, correct?
So in other communities, and the clerks are participating in those decision-making, but there are a lot of criteria that come into play when you set up a polling location. So it has to be a not-for-profit, it has to have ADA accessibility. There's a lot of things to consider. In the city of Bloomfield Hills, we've had discussions over the years about the importance of maintaining the process that we have for our voters. And I didn't bring that to the commission thinking that this was the best way to move forward, so, which is the equipment purchase as a result of that.
You know, I agree with your direction, Amy, that we want the voting to be done here, you know, and establish this will be, like you said, a good learning to see how many. So it's public how many people do it. So at the end, we'll be able to see how many people did the 9 days before. Is that correct? How many did the absentee and how many voted the day of?
Yes.
That's right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
But-
Michigan's the only state in the country now that allows those 3 options for voting accessibility.
Really?
Voting in person on election day, voting via absentee, or voting early voting. So the state is kind of learning as they go as well.
We're the only state doing this?
All 3 options.
Wow.
Other states do early voting, other states do absentee, and obviously other states do election day, but no state does all 3.
Interesting.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve this, because I think our residents would want us to keep it in-house.
I agree.
So this will, at some point, require a budget amendment?
Now,
Well, I've given you the amount if you're comfortable with making the budget, approving the expense and the budget amendment today. I'm seeing it right here.
do we need two motions if we do
So
that?
one to adopt the plan, the
Yes.
plan is on the back, of my memo.
Right.
One to adopt the plan and one
Budget.
to approve the budget and the budget amendment.
I will make a motion to approve the budget approval and the budget amendment. Can I do that together? For the early election voting process.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Thank you.
Do I need to make a motion to approve the early voting plan
Yes.
and election
Yeah.
update, such
Oh, I'm
as,
sorry, I
Yeah.
thought you included it. Did you include the budget in it?
That was the budget and the
No.
budget.
Yeah, it was just the budget.
Yeah.
Mine was
Oh,
the
okay.
budget.
We need
so-
this,
Sorry.
yes.
Yes,
do.
thank you.
Yes.
okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the election update and early voting plan as dictated by the state of Michigan and all, to allow our voters in our city to vote as they normally do in our city hall.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you
All
very much.
opposed? Okay, now we'll hear city manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to update the commission on the Trowbridge chip seal project, just to kind of let you folks know how it's been going. And I wanted to thank Commissioner Baxter and in particular his wife for walking around and finding some areas that could be improved. So, from what we've heard from the staff, it's been positive. And recently I did speak with a resident who didn't like some water issue in front of his house, and we're gonna take a look at that. And so what we're gonna do is take a look at any little issues and try to just kind of tack it all at once. There's not very many that we found, but there are a few. But, I mean, the commission may come across folks talking about it, but I wanted to mention what this project was really about, and it wasn't really a full grading, water mitigation issue or project, where there's curb and gutter and you know, a lot of re-ditching and things to combat every little water issue. What it was kind of you know, putting a tar mat on top of the dirt road with a gravel on top of that to kind of keep the character of a gravel road. And to do that, the roads were graded and compacted so that this application of chip seal would happen. We also raised all the structures that we can get to them because they're all buried. But not all those things that we did were designed to take care of every little water issue. Although I think it's a good idea that we try to do what we can when we do find some water issues on the road, and we are going to do that. But I think overall it's been pretty successful. You know, you guys may have heard other things, I don't know, but we as a staff, and I've talked with everybody, our staff, that it's been pretty positive. I drive through it, it's pretty positive. But there are a few areas that we're gonna try to tackle all at once, so.
Someone mentioned it's dusty, that there
Yes.
is a process that you can apply, but for some reason, why didn't we do that? Or that wasn't part of the bid or something? To
Wasn't
make it,
part of it. I think it does reduce the dust from what it was, but you know, it's really finely ground up limestone. So, you know, over time, it's going to the dust will reduce, but it's always going to have a little bit.
but there
dust.
is a thing or some material that you can put on top of it, so it
We
isn't.
could spray it. Yeah, that's a cost. There'd be a cost to the city. We used to do that with the dirt roads. We probably could put some application
Does that hold
spray on it.
it together more?
No, it's designed, the chip seal on top is designed to be a little bit of a loose. Underneath, there's kind of a tar mat.
Yeah, I think the dust will dissipate after probably this coming winter. When they plow, a lot of that loose stone will get plowed off to the shoulder. And then, because underneath is essentially blacktop and stone mat,
Okay.
and there's really no dust being created there, it's just the loose stone on top being crushed. And I think once that gets pushed off, moved off by tires and such, I think that'll dissipate. And all you need is a very slight rain and the dust pretty much goes
it's
away
gone.
completely. So it's much, much better than it was before.
Yes.
One of the things that I think we're gonna try to educate everybody that lives in there is we're concerned, and this is a point that our DPW foreman brought up, but he's concerned that with the plows, personal plows and all the driveways,
Yeah, they
If
push
they
across
come
the
out,
street.
they're
Yeah.
using a certain plow. Those plows, according to Jamie, that have, they're in front of the trucks are the ones that'll do the damage. He believes that his salt trucks, we're gonna raise the blade up about an inch off so it doesn't remove the chip seal, but he's really worried about folks.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to educate the community there.
Would that be like a
Yeah.
newsletter that goes out? And
Yeah, and I thought maybe we would just wait a little bit,
Mhm.
because they'll get lost, I think. So we'll
Yeah.
wait right before the season, and we'll talk to the association president and make sure the communication's out there. But that's a pretty valid concern, because we did talk about how we're gonna plow it. And he's confident how we're gonna plow it, but he's worried about everybody else.
That's really a valid point, because I know I have a few neighbors with that stone driveway,
Mhm.
and they have special plow people that come in. They have to lift the blade, and then
Yes.
they actually kind of go over it backwards. Like, they go forward, and then they kind of go backwards with it or something. There is a technique to it, right? Because I didn't think about that, because
Yeah.
in front of every driveway, if they just do what they're doing now, they're gonna go down the driveway and across the road, right?
Well, I think the concern is because the chip seal ends right at the driveways, and some of it is kind of curled up,
Yeah,
and you can catch the edge of it and
Yeah.
then
It
start
right
to
out.
peel it back. So
yeah.
I think that's,
Oh.
once the plow is on the chip seal, I'm not too worried about, I wouldn't be that worried. It should scrape across fine, but you can catch the edge of it.
It's that edge that's at the
Yeah.
end of the driveway. Oh, okay.
And everybody uses a different plowing service too, so they'd have to educate all of them.
Yeah, we're,
Put something together that they could send out to their
Yes.
plowing companies. Because most people in the subdivision do have someone do the plowing for them because the driveways are so long.
we'll have a plan before that happens, but yeah, that's a concern.
I drove over there. I think it looks very nice.
It does. Yeah, it's very
Yeah, there's a
nice.
couple of spots we can improve, and we want people to be happy, so
Mhm.
we'll do what we can. We can't, regrade the road, but
Right.
we can do some modifications, and we did put some extra water mitigation techniques on Canterbury, where there's a hill,
Mhm.
and we put some cement into the road and some certain spots and to firm it up, and so I think what we did was good, and that'll help the water run off. But otherwise, I just want to let you guys know how that's kind of is,
Good.
And the other thing I was just going to mention is that our fire hydrant painting is going pretty well. Although we've had a couple of spilled paint here and there a little bit, but we've immediately taken care of it, and the residents are happy. I think we've had two oopses, and we fixed them. So
We should tell the man that called, we should let him know that we're painting the fire hydrants, the man that called about it a few months ago.
yeah, I wish I remember who that
I
was.
can't
now.
remember his name
You'll
either.
probably notice.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I have.
that's all you have?
One question on Trowbridge that you guys were just saying that, so if, I'm thinking about, like, there was a new person that just built in our road, and the paved road, they had to connect to the street, you know what I mean? So they had to dig up the road, and then they had to pay for it, to repair it. How will that happen at Trowbridge? Will they have to,
So like a road bond, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if we'll have to talk about that.
It'll be more tenant if they have to pay for the repair.
Well, if we did have any sort of road bond, it wouldn't be much of a road bond, because the repair for these roads is a lot less expensive than cutting
I
out
don't know that we
asphalt.
want to go there. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
they're-
just think we
they're
have to do,
touchy.
I'd rather spend the money sending a letter out to everybody. You'll cut the life of your road if your plow guy
Yeah.
doesn't take some effort here.
Yeah, I guess I never even thought of that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's too bad that the township didn't continue it all the way to Charing Cross, because there's still that, you know, right, that line of demarcation, and you've got to drive a while. And
If you want to, to your point, if you want to appreciate the chip seal project, drive down that portion where it connects to the township.
Yeah.
You start hitting some potholes, and you thought, okay, that chip seal's not so bad.
Good reminder, yeah. Speaking of Charing Cross, there's that monument at the intersection there.
At Woodward?
Yeah. Is there anything happening with that to be repaired or?
Yes, so there's supposedly a homeowners group that has worked with us to get the accident reports, and they've contacted the insurance company of the driver that hit that, and they're I even heard that they're working on getting bids for it, and so but we're kind of out of it because it's trying to determine if it's in our right of way. I can't remember what the analysis was, but one of them was an MDOT, and one of them might have been ours, but that homeowners association is trying to take care of it, so.
Okay. That's good news.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
I had a nice note in my mailbox today that I'd like to share with everyone. It's from a Bob Cramner. He says, "Dear Miss Buckley, Cranbrook Manor Condo Association recently had our annual meeting in the council chambers of City Hall. The room is wonderful and was perfect for our meeting. There was so much, thank you so much for providing it." He said, "The police who let us in were helpful and friendly, and Public Safety Director Gormley showed us around and helped us with, everything was great, and helped us, everything was great. Thanks a lot, Bob Kramer." So, thank you very much. Nice. Anyone else have anything else?
No.
No? No? Okay, so the meeting is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.